Give everyone just a few more minutes to filter in and join us here before we get started. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. Still having some folks filter in, so we'll give just a couple more minutes, and then we'll do introductions of myself and Rachel, and then we'll dive into our presentation. Everyone is currently on mute now, but you will have an opportunity to raise your hand and ask questions or put questions in the chat at the end of the presentation. Okay, I think we're slowing down on folks entering now, so we'll go ahead and introduce myself and Rachel. Thank you everyone for being here this afternoon, and thank you for coming to talk with us about our community-based organizations. My name is Haley Matthews. I'm the budget manager in the Budget and Management Services Department. Been working with CBO groups for a couple of years and excited to enter into this next round of funding with everyone. Rachel?
Yeah, I'm Rachel Herring. I'm the Senior Budget and Grants Analyst. I just started at the latter part of last year, so I'm excited to meet all of you as we go through the CBO process.
Okay. So we are going to go through some introductory slides, and then I will hand it off to Rachel midway through the presentation, and she will walk us all through the application so you can see what it looks like in real time. She'll give a few updates on what has changed from the application process from last year to this year, and then we'll give you guys some just additional resources for our website and for some grant writing classes that we'll have coming up. All right, so welcome everyone. This is our fiscal year 26-27 community-based organization information session. On the first slide here, we have our timeline. The application timeline is very similar to what it was last year. Obviously today is January 15th. This is our first CBO information session. The actual application portal will open on January 30th. You may have seen that we put out one press release before this meeting to, I lost my presentation, never mind. We'll put out an additional press release on January 30th that will have the actual link to the application. It'll also be posted on our website for you to find there, but we will do a press release just so everyone has that information. If you are on our current CBO listserv, you will get an email from us as well with that application. The beginning in February, we will start some grant writing classes with Mary at the Nonprofit Consortium. At the end of this presentation, we'll give you those dates, and we'll also have the links to register, which are also located on our website. February 23rd, we'll have our second CBO information session. That one will be virtual as well. There will be in the morning. So if there are other folks in your organization that weren't able to attend today, or other organizations that you know of that would like the information, but they couldn't attend today, February 23rd is also an opportunity. The application portal will close on March 6th. Last year it closed at the end of February, but we're about a week delayed in our process this year, so it will close on March 6th. And then the month of March, us at the staff level, myself, Rachel, and then members from the county management team will start to review applications, and we'll evaluate them for eligibility, and they'll also evaluate them in line with our strategic plan. And then that will take us a month or so to work through that process. And then in April, there we go. In April, we'll push those applications over to the Board of County Commissioners for their review process. Then we estimate on June 18th is when we will adopt our fiscal year 27 budget, and all of the list of the community-based organizations will be released with the adoption of the budget. Okay, so now that we've established our timeline, what does our process look like? And what is a community-based organization? What is the funding for? I have a lot of new faces here. So each year at Guilford County, we provide funds to a variety of community organizations that meet the definition of a 501c3 nonprofit to facilitate economically, culturally, and civically valuable services. So kind of our goal in issuing these awards are to benefit Guilford County residents by improving quality of life for citizens, ensuring equal access to available resources, and seeking efficiency in service delivery. And you'll notice at the top, we highlight that organizations must be a 501c nonprofit. That is one of our eligibility requirements. We'll go through the rest a little bit later in the presentation. I have one getting in. There we go. So the public purpose requirement, everything that we do within the county must have a public purpose. So the North Carolina Constitution actually requires that all public funds be expended for public purposes only. The statute that is written into the Constitution is pretty broad, but we have some further information from court rulings and interpretations that have been further defined. So in order to be classified as fulfilling a public purpose, it has to be not solely for the benefit of a particular person's or interest, so it has to serve more than just one person. Involving a reasonable connection with a unit of government, benefit the public generally and not special interests or persons, and then the unit of government must have statutory authority to engage in the activity. If you were with us last year, and you've heard my example about the pink ponies, and obviously I'm aging and I didn't know who Chapel Roan was, so I won't give that same example this year, since you guys pointed out that that was a popular song. But in order for us to fund activities, it must be, yes, the presentation will be available after the meeting. We will send out the slide deck and the recording. But in order for us to disperse funds, it must be an activity that we can engage in. So it needs to fit that public purpose statement. So, for instance, if there is an organization who is going to engage in an activity that government typically wouldn't engage in, like one good example is we don't provide funds for any kind of alcoholic beverages, right? So if an organization was going to have a party with alcoholic beverages, that would not meet their private public purpose, and that's not something that we would be able to fund. As we go through the application later in the portion of the presentation, question 3A specifically requests the public purpose statement for your proposed project. So keep kind of all these principles in mind when you are thinking about the purpose statement. Okay. Our CBO policy, our most recent CBO policy was adopted in January of 2023. You can find the full policy online, but essentially the policy sets parameters for how CBO applications are processed, including the eligibility of organizations, funding priorities, required documentation, and funding amount. So now that we have gone through the basics, I'm going to move the presentation over to Rachel, and she's going to go through those eligibility requirements and then go through the specific entity or specific sections of the application. Okay, Rachel.
Okay, so let's talk about what goes into the actual application. So we're going to start with your organization's legal name. And it needs to appear on the application the same as it is registered with the NC Secretary of State. It's important that this matches what's on your application to how you're registered, because that's actually one of the ways that we verify that you meet program requirements. You're also going to include your tax ID number, which is found on your W-9. Your use of funding. So funds can be used for general operating costs, program expenses, capacity buildings. We do ask that you refrain from using it to create any new personnel, because this can create sustainability issues once your CBO funding expires. You can use it for personnel if you're using it for a portion of a salary to expand on a program that you already have, though. And then also the sustainability of your program. So we want to see how you're going to continue the program once your CBO funding expires. Next, we're going to look at some things that are new for this year in the application. So we do have performance measures, which are new this year. This is simply how your program is working. This could be number of people served, outcomes achieved. An example I'll give would be, if you're running an after-school program, that your aim is to enroll 45 children in your after-school program. Or if you're running a food bank, maybe your goal is 150 families reached during your weekly food distribution. If you're a current CBO, you've been reporting on this information during your quarterly reports, but now we're also including it in your application. Also, you're going to be asked to explain how your program aligns with one or more of the county's strategic goals. These include healthy and thriving people, lifelong success, safe and resilient communities, sustainable and vibrant communities, and operational support and fiscal sustainability. So actually, let's hop. Okay.
Rachel, I think you've gone on mute. Are you able to unmute, Rachel? She may not be able to hear us. She's next door. Let me hop next door. All right, folks, we're experiencing some technical difficulty.
I like can't get out.
Okay, bear with us one moment, folks. Okay, if folks are able to hear me, can you give me a thumbs up or put something in the chat? Okay, great. Okay, Rachel, I'm able to share on my computer. If you want to come switch spots, Rachel's gonna come into my office. Her computer has stopped working.
Okay, I think I'm back. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
you're back.
I
Okay,
got me off
perfect.
mute at least.
Okay,
So I'll go through the application while Haley has it up. I'm sorry about that. So let's run through the application. Haley, do you mind pulling up the application from the portal there?
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So this is the application for the 26-27 CBO application. You'll see at the top section, it's kind of just some basic information. Your date submitted, your organizational name, as mentioned earlier, that is how you're registered with the NC Secretary of State. It needs to match exactly how you are registered. Your point of contact. So it doesn't have to be who's completing this application, but it's your point of contact for like who you want us to contact. If you were granted the award in terms of like how we proceed with our contract and who's going to handle reporting for the award. Contact information. Please make sure to include both your email and phone number. As we found out recently, sometimes we have email issues and we might need to reach out to you directly via phone to get in contact with you. Tax identification number, so that is also found on your W-9. Your organizational address. So we need your full address here, street number, street name, city, state, zip. This is where your check will be mailed if you're having a check mailed, to make sure it is a location that you are checking frequently and won't get lost going somewhere. There is an option for direct deposit if you prefer to do that, and we'll go over that later at the end of the presentation. Contract delivery method. Our preferred method is to do electronic. We do it through DocuSign, which makes it secure and easy to deliver your contract and for you to sign off on your contract. But if you prefer to receive it via mail, or if you prefer in person, you can come downtown and pick it up from our office if that's an option. Are PO boxes okay? Yes, PO boxes are okay. No, okay, strategic goals. We went into technical difficulties there, sorry about that, but I was going to mention, no, you don't have to align with all 5 strategic goals. You can have one that you align with or more than one. Number 2 is expiration date of your certificate of liability insurance. This is only your expiration date. When we're doing the application portal, you'll see that there's a space to upload your certificate of insurance. You don't have to do that. It is an optional thing. But once you do have to have liability insurance, and if you go into the contract process, we will need a copy of your certificate of liability insurance, and it will need to be up to date. But at this point on the application, we're just asking for the expiration date of your current liability insurance. So then we're moving kind of into your project description. So your public purpose statement, which Haley mentioned earlier, is just a short statement of how you plan to use the county funds. Key staff that are involved in the program. So You might have a program manager, a grants manager, a couple of people who are helping out with this program. So include all of those people there if they need to be included in any of the information going out about the program award. Requested amount of county funds. Just of note here, if you are requesting over $100,000, you're going to need to attach a copy of your annual audit in the application portal. Alignment with strategic goals. We talked about that a little earlier. Those are the 5 strategic goals. You need to, let us know here how your program aligns with one or more of those goals. Can you scroll up a bit? Thank you, Haley. So success in prior years for this program. It could be your current program for your organization. I'm sorry. Could be current programs you have, activities or accomplishments, anything you think is relevant to this application and to the program you're trying to get funded. Are you currently contracted with Guilford County? It may be a simple no for some of you. If you are currently contracted or you currently have CBO funds already, include a brief description of what you're currently funded for, what your CBO program has, or if you have a contract with another county department, what you're funded with there. Who's your target population? So we want an estimated number of residents you're going to serve and who that target population is. Number 8 is one of the new ones we talked about earlier with the performance metrics. So we're asking you guys to identify 2 to 4 performance metrics to measure here and a projected date of completion. Examples earlier were 25 kids enrolled in your after-school program or reaching 150 families weekly with like a food distribution program. Okay, so next we have the table with your revenues and expenses. So with revenues, we're looking for revenues that support the program on your application. This does not have to be your organization as a whole. So you could list your CBO award that you're requesting and then any other sources that would help support that program. So maybe you have individual donations coming in, maybe you have corporate sponsors of some sort, or you're doing fundraisers to support that program. We would ask you to list all that in your revenue section. In the expenses, what expenses are you gonna use your CBO funds for? So it could be personnel, supplies, technology, rent, utilities, just a couple examples there. We're wanting to see if your expenses are going to be allowable within CBO funding. So next we have a box with just any additional information you want to provide that helps us understand that table. So maybe you're breaking down some of those expenses just to help us better understand. For example, if you were running a summer camp, letting us know that you're going to have 3 counselors times 8 weeks, and that's your personnel costs there, that type of information. And then finally, on your application, how will your program be sustained in future years once CBO funding expires? Are new nonprofits okay to apply is one of our questions. Yes, new nonprofits are okay to apply.
Yes, and I see above that regarding question 5, if you don't have anything to demonstrate success because you're a nonprofit, still totally okay to apply. What I would do in this situation is I would just give a description of what you're hoping to achieve. So what your organization is hoping to achieve with this program. I'm scrolling back up. I only have Microsoft Online and do not have it on my desktop, which just made filling the application difficult. If it's helpful, we could convert the application to a PDF and email you like a PDF if that is helpful. But we don't unfortunately have a great way to get around that. Rob is asking, are multi-organization collaborative applications accepted with one primary applicant and several sub-grantees, or applications limited to one organization? So I will say in general, we can only contract with one organization like per contract. We are just not set up for some awardee capabilities just because for context, last year or this current year, we have 82 awardees. And there are 2 of us in our office now. I was a one-woman show for a long time. There's 2 of us that work on the contracts here, and on the contract side, there's only 1. So we're just not able to administer kind of that level of detail. But what I would recommend is if you have one organization that is applying, and you want to work with other organizations on the program, that in the expense section, you notate contractual services, and then, you say you'll contract with X organization as part of your budget. When you say permanent personnel are not allowed, can you clarify whether time limited or partially allocated staff roles are permissible when they are directly tied to capacity building and long-term sustainability? So in terms of personnel, specifically what we do not encourage is if you run an after-school program and you say, I currently have 0 staff and I'm going to use this program to fund that 1 staff person, and this will be the only funding source, right? Because what happens next year is if you don't receive the funding source, then you're going to have to terminate that employee, right? And you're not able to stay in that program. In all other aspects, if personnel are related to operating costs, we can charge those. So if you are staffing a portion of your summer camp, if you are allocating part of your executive director's time to this program, all of those type of costs are allowable. We just want to make sure that no one is set up for failure if they're relying solely on this as a source of a full-time employee's salary. Can we explain what type of funding is not allowable? Absolutely. So what we do not allow like large capital purchases. So if you wanted to purchase land, do construction of a building, because that comes with some complexities since we are a public organization. If we give you funds to do that, then we have to consider part ownership and all of those legalities that I don't understand. So that's one thing that's not allowable. The other thing that our state constitution does not allow is direct payments to participants. So if you ran a food bank, for instance, and you said, instead of giving folks a basket of food, I want to give them $100. That is not allowable. We cannot provide direct payments to residents. So those are 2 that we do not allow. Calvin asks, is the application online? Is there one you can pick up? Yes, it is fully online. The link will go out January 30th. Unfortunately, the reason why we cannot accommodate pickup in general of applications is because today I think we had almost 200 of you registered for this. If we, accommodated 200 pickup, we just don't have enough staff capacity to administer paper applications. Princess, I'll put your name down, put in the chat what organization you're with in your email, and we'll get you an email of a PDF. Ron Harris, if you're a new nonprofit and don't have insurance, how do you approach that? My advice to new nonprofits is always wait until you figure out if you receive the contract or not to get insurance. Why? Because insurance is an expense, and when you are newly funded, expenses are not what you want to add to your balance sheet, right? So you can just wait and obtain insurance at the time of award. But if you already have insurance, the reason why we ask for the expiration date is if you already have insurance and you do receive a grant award, the contract process will be faster if we already have that documentation. Nicholas asks, if we have multiple programs that we need funding for, can that be done in a single application? It can be done in a single application. That is fine. I will say that the final amounts are subject to approval. You may apply for $50,000. You may be awarded $25,000, and that's part of the commissioner's decision process. So I think if you do apply for multiple programs, or there are some expenses you can no longer accommodate because you don't get the full amount that you requested, you'll just work with us during the contract process to kind of narrow down what you can now accommodate with the funds you've been awarded. Doris asks, can you elaborate on the strategic goals for Guilford County? So we are actually in the process of going through a new strategic planning framework, and our Board of Commissioners will be going forward through that process on January 30th. So we will have more information to share there, and we'll be able to send out kind of a link to the website once that launches, but that's in process. Kelly asks, are one-time minor renovations like painting your floor allowed if it creates the opportunity to deliver the program? Yes, those one-time renovations are allowed because they do not provide any kind of ownership stake. Would shelving for food pantry to hold more food? Yes, that would be an equipment cost. Can funds be used for general operations? Absolutely. We want you to use these for operating funds. We want you to use these funds for program delivery. What was the average amount awarded last year? That's a good question. That is an exercise in my math skills. I'll pull our spreadsheet up right now and tell you what the average was. But I will say we have a range of awards from $2,000 to $3,000 to probably $75,000 or so. I will say most organizations apply for less than $100,000 because when you get to the $100,000 mark, you're required to have an audit. And when you are a small nonprofit, you know, that can be burdensome. And that's a requirement we can't waive because it is state statute. Okay, let me pull up my spreadsheet, do a quick average. Let's see. All right. The average award, if we average all of our awards together from last year, was $21,544. So, fun facts: last year we awarded $1.7 million total for our CBO program. Is HMIS required to provide services? Edith, I am assuming you were referring to HMIS in terms of the homelessness software. No, it is not required to provide services. Can any of the award go to salaries? Ron may have missed that. You did miss that, Ron. Funds can go to salaries. We ask you to refrain from establishing new permanent positions with the funds in case you don't receive the award next year. What amount will be given out this year? That's a great question. We do not have a finalized CBO. Oh man, you guys are coming in with the questions. And we have a little bit more to go in the presentation too. So I won't steal Rachel's thunder with everything, but what amount will be given out this year for CBOs? This is a reevaluation year when tax values of homes are being reevaluated. So we will not know the final number of the amount because our policy is 0.2% of our general fund budget goes towards CBOs. We won't know that final amount until the Board of Commissioners set the tax rate. Is it a full deny or partial approval if the requested funds were not approved, but a lesser or different amount get approved? I'm not entirely sure if you're asking me if we fully deny applicants or if we also just give partial amounts. Yes, we do award partial amounts of applications. So you may ask for $50,000 and get awarded 25. That's not uncommon. But there are also organizations who don't receive funds at all. How is the collection committee formed? I will let Rachel talk about that in our further slides. Can funds be used for purchasing transportation? Yes, they can be used for purchasing transportation, such as bus passes, Uber rides, but you cannot give residents direct funds. So you can't say, here's $10, go buy a bus pass. You would have to buy the bus pass for the resident. Okay, and then I see a bunch of requests for PDFs. So
yeah, I'll just mention in regards to the PDFs, an email will be sent out on January 30th once the application goes live to anyone who is registered. So I can just include a PDF on that email so everybody doesn't have to put their emails into the chat box. Just everybody who's registered will get a copy of the PDF along with the link for the application portal. So that is where I'm going to take you next, is to the application portal. So I'm going to see if it'll let me share my screen again now. My computer seems to be working, so we're going to see what happens.
Yes. And one quick thing to add, since I do see several folks asking for the PDF application, even if you decide you're going to fill out the PDF instead of the Word version, you still need to go into this online portal and submit your application. If you email us your application, it will get lost in the void because, last year we had 200 applicants. There are 2 of us. If you email us during CBO time, it will just get lost. So please make sure that you are uploading your final application, whether it's a PDF copy or a Word copy, into this portal that Rachel's going to show you.
Okay, so Haley, can you see that application portal when we get
Yes,
there?
I can.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the application portal now that we've talked about the actual application. So once you finish your application, which is a Word document or a PDF document that we'll be sending out on January 30th, it will also be on the CBO website January 30th. And then the link to the application portal will also be in the email and on the website. So you're going to save your completed PDF or your completed Word document, and you are going to upload it to this portal. So let's talk about the portal. So it's going to auto-populate your date of application information. Again, with your agency name, you want to make sure that that matches Secretary of State registration, your contact name or submitter, but it doesn't have to be a submitter, but it's the person you want us to get in contact about this contract or award. An email address, phone number, mailing address, and then you will see down below in the document upload section, if you click on the FY27, you can also download the application here if you need to. But after you've downloaded that or you've used the PDF from the email, you are going to want to attach it here in the FY27 upload. So you're going to upload your application. You're going to upload your W-9, which is also required. You're going to upload your proof of nonprofit, which is required, and your board of directors roster, which is required. If you've got your certificate of liability insurance handy, you can also go ahead and upload that, but that is optional. At the end of the presentation, there is a link to how to complete the direct deposit information if you want to do that. You can upload that here at the supporting documents section. That's a secure way to get that information to us about your bank routing information. Or if you have other supporting documentation that you want to include here. Maybe you felt like you wanted to expand on something that you had in the application, you can add that here. It could be a spreadsheet, Word document, whatever. So then you're going to let them know you're not a robot. It's going to pull up that little thing where you have to find how many bicycles or whatever it is and get that clicked. And then you're going to click submit. So the great thing about our application portal is that you're going to get a confirmation when you click submit. It's going to give you a confirmation page, but it's also going to send you a confirmation email to the email that you put up here at the top of this form so that you know that your application got to us. I was going to note about this. It is going to open January 30th and it will be open until March 6th. The application portal, you need to do it all at one time. So once you start it, go ahead and finish it. The application itself is a Word document, so you can start on that ahead of time and then compile all your documents. But go ahead and put everything in at once. You can't come back and update it after you submitted it.
And Rachel, can you just click on where they will get the Word document just so they know how to access it on the application?
Absolutely. So here next to download using the link, you can click on that. And it will pull up that application that we went over earlier. You could download the file and make an edit to the copy and add your information in there. So it says, what kind of information will you need on the board of directors?
We will just need a list of who is on your board of directors. So like first, last name, and then title or position. That's just information we're required to document. And then I'm seeing a few other questions. Can you purchase a vehicle, truck, van? Yes, that is allowable. Can we apply through a fiscal sponsor? So interesting question. I'm assuming potentially Terry's asking because maybe they're not a nonprofit yet, or maybe they don't have the capacity to administer the ward. My advice would be if there is a organization that you want to work with on this project, you can have them apply and then list your organization as like a contractor or contracted services in their budget. But they, they would be the ones who would be ultimately responsible for the award. Are there any best practices or budget structures you recommend for demonstrating that allocated personnel costs are diversified and not solely dependent on county funding? So the best way for us to know that is for you to list your other revenue sources. So if you have donations or other awards, for you to list those in the revenue section. Will the application autosave as you fill it out? It will not. I wish it would, but we're limited, government technology. We have what we have. So it will not save. So you want to make sure that when you are in this portal, you submit once and that you get the confirmation. You get the confirmation email. If you do not receive a confirmation email, your application was not received, and we will not have record that you put in the application. What is accepted as the proof of nonprofit? So what we will need is we will need the, and I cannot remember what the form is called right now, but we'll need the statement from the IRS that designated your organization as nonprofit. So I know some nonprofits who have been around for 30, 40 years, maybe they don't have a copy of that. You can give us the most recent, cover page of your, letter of determination. I think you're doing your letter of determination from IRS. You can also give us a copy of just the front page of your tax return stating that you're a nonprofit, if you don't have access to the letter of determination. And then I did see something in the Q&A about how many organizations received funds last year. This current fiscal year, there were 82 awardees. Last fiscal year, oh, my brain did not retain that information. I think it was in the 70s. I want to say 77, but don't quote me on that because I don't have information on it. But we're currently serving 82 nonprofits through our CBO program. What about orgs that are filing for the 501Cs? Our application is pending with the IRS. We will need that determination in order for you to be an eligible applicant. So if you have not received your determination yet and you don't receive it by the time the applications are due on March 6th, then I recommend applying next year, because that is something that we're bound to by law, something that we can't budge on. Okay, Rachel, I'll hand it back to you to go through the rest of our requirements.
Okay, so just going over those application requirement attachments again that are required. So proof of nonprofit status is required, W-9 is required, board of directors roster required, and if your application is requesting over $100,000, you do have to include a current annual audit and those required documents. The certificate of liability insurance is optional. The direct deposit form is optional. At the end, there is also a link to new vendor registration. So if you are awarded funds, you will have to become a vendor with the county and complete the vendor registration, but there is nothing to attach in the portal for that. Of note, we do have some grant writing workshops coming up. The Guilford Nonprofit Consortium is teaching those classes. We have one February 18th here in Greensboro. So there's links there to register for that. And we have one February 24th in High Point to register for that. Those are in-person classes. And she's going to kind of help you with figuring out the best way to fill out the application for your organization. If you do receive funding, then you get to go into contract with the county. So there is a link here that you can see a template for the contract. In addition to the contract, you also do need to sign and have notarized the certification of no overdue tax debts. You need to sign and notarize that you have a conflict of interest policy and attach that, or there's a copy of the county's conflict of interest policy that you can sign and notarize that you will adopt our conflict of interest policy. And last, you need to sign and notarize the affidavit regarding E-Verify. If you were a smaller organization, you may not have to use E-Verify, but you can note that in that document as well. All of those documents are in that link there with the CBO contract template if you want to take a look at those. Also, if you receive funding, there is required quarterly reporting. And we'll take a look at that real quick so you can see what those quarterly reports look like. So it's got that same basic information, organization name, contact information, your award amount, and your organization mailing address. You will complete these 4 times a year if you receive funding. You're going to tell us about the number of contacts you've served during that quarter, the ways that you've impacted county residents during that quarter, and any other updates that you want to give about your program or agency. And then we're going to look at this table where we're going to talk about where you're going to report on your performance metrics that you're listing in your application. So what activities have you done toward those performance metrics and what have you achieved to date? The last table is going to talk about the expenses that you've incurred during each quarter. So you would break it down into those 4 categories, sorry. Personnel, supplies, services, or other. You're going to report on it each quarter, what you are year to date, and then total program budget. So that may include any other donations or other grants that you've also received. So in our contact and resources, we do have a link to the CBO website, which has some Q&As, and also there'll be a link there once the application goes live on January 30th. There's links to the new vendor registration form that you will need to complete if you are awarded funds, direct deposit authorization form if you want to complete that, just the contract template if you want to look over that, as well as the quarterly report if you want to look over that. If you do have any questions, it's got Haley and mine's contact information. There's the grants email, which we both check. So if one of us is out of the office for any reason, the other one should be able to help you, and contact information as well. And we do try to get back fairly quickly in contact if you do have any questions. So expect to hear from us like within a day or 2. Where are our questions? Do we need a charitable solicitation license?
You do not have to have a charitable solicitation license, but you do need to be a registered business with the Secretary of State, the North Carolina Secretary of State. So sometimes, depending on how you register your business, they may ask you to do that charitable solicitation license. Is there a county non-discrimination policy? Yes, there is. In terms of, I'm assuming you're asking of probably in terms of the contract. So in the contract, the 3 documents that we will ask you, if you do not have your own, is to certify the conflict of interest policy, no overdue taxes, and then your affidavit regarding E-Verify. Allison's asking if all funds are spent in Q1, do you need to file quarterly? So if you spend all your funds in Q1, you will file that quarterly report, and then you can just send us an email for the following quarters just saying we've already expended the funds, we have no updates, unless your performance metrics change. So for instance, if in Q1 you spent the funds but you weren't able to get all of the surveys from your event done, or you didn't have all those metrics to report and you need to update those for Q2, then you would send in a follow-up report. A copy of the reporting will be provided to you after this. We will also send out the slides. Where can you find the conflict of interest policy prior to the application? That is in the contract template. When we send out the slides, you'll be able to actually click on the link on this slide, but also it's on our website. When are funds allocated in which quarter? So the funds will be allocated in June when we adopt our fiscal year 27 budget. And then in terms of contract processing, as soon as the Board of County Commissioners adopts the budget on June 18th, Rachel and I will start working on contracts. I think we also have some of our contract team on this call, so they know that we start working on it as soon as we can. But typically organizations can expect to receive their funds somewhere around the October to November time frame. And sometimes it does depend on how fast an organization can get their contract notarized. Do you need an audit? If you were asking for over $100,000, yes, an audit is required. That is a state requirement that we cannot change. What if you have one LLC and one nonprofit? Are you allowed 2 applications? You would only be able to apply for your nonprofit. It has to be a 501c. We cannot fund anything that's not a 501c nonprofit. Karen's asking if you receive partial funding, how do you report against your goals achieved? So if you receive only partial funding, we will work with you during the contract process to tailor your performance metrics to what you're now able to achieve with that revised amount. So for instance, if you say we can serve 50 people with $100,000, you only get $50,000, then maybe we change your metric and you say we can only serve 25, and then we cater to that metric instead of the original one. And our contracts team did remind me, I think Rachel mentioned earlier that if you are awarded a contract, you'll have to register as a vendor in our system. The one thing that you will be required to upload when you register as a vendor is just your W-9, which you should already have from the application process. So I think we've hit most every question. If there are other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I think if you raise your hand, we can unmute you if you would like to vocalize a question. But I did just see one more comment in through from Rob. At the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that funds seek to benefit county residents while stipulating that funds are for improving quality of life for citizens. Are organizations that serve a significant percentage of immigrants and non-citizens eligible? Yes, they are eligible. So it's not based on citizen status, but it is based on resident status in terms of you need to be serving residents in Guilford County. So if you are a nonprofit and you serve 50% of your residents in Guilford and 50% of your residents in Forsyth, we can only fund for you to work with the Guilford County residents, not with folks who live outside of the county. And I see Travis has his hand up. So I'm going to allow you to turn on your microphone, Travis, and you can unmute yourself when you're ready to speak. Travis, are you able to unmute yourself to speak? Okay, we'll come back to Travis if he's able to unmute. But yes, Candace, this session is being recorded and the recording will be sent out with the slides. It will most likely be tomorrow morning because once we all exit this recording, it takes an hour or a few hours for the recording to be actually generated and pushed over to us. So likely be tomorrow morning before we're able to actually share that with you. All right, Travis, were you able to unmute?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay,
had connectivity issues. Thank you so much. So I am with Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity here and our Educational Leadership Foundation. And at the beginning of the presentation, you all shared we cannot give funds directly to participants. Let's say we have a program, which we do have a program that focuses on savings and benefits where we discuss finances with our mentees and their parents. And a project that we're looking to do in May is allow them to open up a bank account. So we can't give them the funds directly, but if we wanted to help them open up a bank account where we're partnering with PNC Bank and they said that they would accept $10 for them to open up their bank account, could we pay the funds directly to the organization for the mentees to open up a bank account?
So that's probably something we would have to ask our attorneys specifically, because you know, I guess if I'm not sure what, I guess it's at PNC. If PNC is invoicing you for like a charge to open a bank account, then that would be allowable. Now, if they're invoicing you to distribute money into folks' bank accounts, then that's something that probably would not be allowable. So I think it just depends on if it is like a startup fee for their account or if it's actually funds that go into their account.
Okay, so it sounds like we should probably go the route of having them send us an invoice and we would keep the invoice for reconciliation
Right.
purposes. Okay,
Mhm.
all right, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And then Cheryl is asking if some of our program recipients live in City of Greensboro or City of High Point limits, is that okay? Absolutely. The entirety of the City of Greensboro is in Guilford County, and probably 90-ish% of the City of High Point is also in Guilford County. So if you have, I guess technically, if you have City of High Point folks that are possibly over the line into Randolph County, those folks would not be eligible to receive programs, but that's getting kind of into very specific situations. So yes, it does not matter what city they live in as long as it's in Guilford County. Alejandro asks, are we allowed to give gift cards or stipends? So I think this question is, it depends. So if you are paying someone for services, for instance, sometimes we have folks who partner with tutors, for instance, and they say, we will pay you $600 a month to tutor students, 5 days a week or such. That is allowable because you are paying them for a service that they're performing in your organization. Giving out gift cards in lieu of cash would not be allowable. So if you're saying, I will give you a gift card, so you can buy clothing or, food or something like that, that would not be allowable because that's considered a direct payment to a resident. Okay. Not seeing any more questions in the chat. Looks like Bernadette has a question. Let me allow you to unmute yourself, Bernadette. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Oh, Bernadette, you are still muted if you're speaking.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had to answer some type of question. So I was also going to ask about if we are providing services um, to students in a particular school. Um, should we say because we're open to connecting with any Guilford County school, but if we're at this point or the point of the contract, if awarded, that we are providing services to students in a particular school, is that allowable?
Yeah, absolutely. That is allowable. So if you're providing, to a specific school or specific zip code, that is allowable. If anyone has been keeping up with the different statuses of executive orders, we have had to be more intentional this past year in how we write contracts and award funds for specific groups of people that could be seen as like discriminating factors, right? But location is not a discriminating factor. Discriminating factors would be sex, age, ethnicity. So, for example, if you were going to say we are only going to serve males, right? That would be something where we would have to work with you on the scope of that, because that could be seen by the federal government as us discriminating against the female population, right? So, but zip code or like area grouping, school, those are not considered discriminating factors by the federal government.
And would the verbiage of like we're serving under-resourced teens, is that discriminatory considered in that box?
No, that's actually a great question. So in terms of, we are required to do something called a means test in the public world, right? Which essentially means that we want to serve those who are underserved or have less access to resources, right? So that's something that's totally allowable. So if we say, we are going to go to an underserved area and serve these youth, that's totally fine. I think in terms of that, generally, there are a few different ways that you can determine if someone is in that underserved population, right? One being income or HUD requirements or your definition of a homeless individual. So there are different ways I think you can define those type of populations. But yes, that's allowable, and that's what we focus on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine says, we are a nonprofit child care center located in Greensboro, but provide care for families in High Point and surrounding triad. We help them with food, transportation, and rent. We'll be able to use the funds for families. You can use the funds for families if they live in Guilford County. So If they live Guilford County, Greensboro, Guilford County, High Point, that's fine. If they live out, like if you're in other places in the triad, like Winston-Salem, Thomasville, Forsyth County, you cannot use funds for those families. So you would just have to make sure with this pot of funding that you are only dedicating it to Guilford County residents. How about a program for the senior population over age 60? So age is seen as a discriminating factor in the eye of the federal government. So it's something we probably have to work with you in your contract. One thing that we always highlight is, you know, nonprofits can make the programs open to anyone, right? But if you are having, a senior workout class, probably only seniors are going to attend that, right? So, you can kind of specify your population by the types of programs and activities that you are disseminating into the residents, but we do have to be really open about not segregating any of those type of discriminatory populations. Travis asked if we hire professional tutors for mentees needing extra academic support, do we require anything from the third-party vendor? So in terms of if you're hiring tutors for mentees, what you would just need is an invoice or receipt or some type of documentation that you are paying those professional tutors for their services. So whether that is a timesheet and then you allocate that by an hourly rate, or whether that's an invoice from the third party, you would just need some type of documentation that you've paid that expense and what the expense was for. Yeah, absolutely. Any further questions? Okay, well, we'll stay on for another couple of minutes in case anyone wants to hang around and has additional questions. Oh, how are applications reviewed? Yeah, I may have neglected to put a slide on there about the specific application process, but in terms of the application process, so I'll just share or let me just talk about the timeline. So the application will close March 6th, and once it closes, Rachel and myself will check all of the applications for eligibility. And the things we check for there is that you're a nonprofit, that you are registered with Secretary of State, you have provided us with a valid W-9, and you have provided us with your board of directors roster, and then that you are serving residents in Guilford County. So those are all eligibility related requirements that we check for. Once that has been conducted and we have all the applications that have now been checked for eligibility, there's then this is new this year, and prior years, the Board of Commissioners reviewed every single application from start to finish, but this year there will be a staff committee, including myself and Rachel, a few other members of our budget team, and then members of our county management team who will review those applications for alignment with our strategic priorities. So we will give a kind of a scoring matrix that will go along with your application to say, this is how you align with the strategic plan, and then this is how you align with other principles, including like accountability, sustainability. So we will give that matrix with the application to the board, and then the board will evaluate those matrices along with the applications and make their final funding recommendations. And then once they make those recommendations, they are then adopted. This year, it should be June 18th. They will then adopt those recommendations, and then contracts will start at the beginning of our fiscal year, which is July 1. We say they start then because you're allowed to expend funds starting July 1, but in reality, it takes us longer than just a few weeks to get your contract ready. So typically funds are dispersed around October or November timeline. How many applications are awarded? So there is no set amount of the number of applications. This past year, there were 82 organizations that were awarded. So, it honestly will depend on how many applications we have and what the final recommendations are of the commissioners. What about program partnerships? Do all agencies report, or should we select a primary? You should select a primary organization that will be in charge of the award. We will only issue one contract one contract for funding. So what you would do is that you would have your primary organization that would be in charge of the award. And then within the application, when they are detailing the expenses, they would then put your organization as, you know, contracted services and provide that. Are there partial awards? Yes, the final amounts are awarded at the discretion of the board of commissioners. So there are partial awards, and some organizations receive full awards. And then I see Bernadette has her hand up again, so feel free to unmute whenever you're ready to speak.
Okay, I'm sorry. One last question. In the portal where you have a place for, I guess, like other supporting documentation, um, is it allowable, like if we have letters of feedback or from some of the like teachers or other administrators that we have served their students or their young people, is that something that we can submit along
Yes.
into that portal for the other supporting documentation?
Yes, so it is allowable, and I'll always say it is allowable to submit supporting documentation. It's allowable to submit pictures and videos. We certainly have organizations that do that, but last year, you know, we had 200 applicants, right? And we looked through every single one of these. So it can be hard for us to go through all of the extra documentation. So my recommendation is always to make sure your application packs a punch, right? So write what is special and unique about your organization in the actual application, because that's what we're going to have the most eyes on. So like, that's always my recommendation. And if you attend the grant writing session with the nonprofit consortium, they can kind of guide you on how to be strategic about that supporting documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Any further questions? Not seeing anything in the chat or the Q&A. Okay. All right, well, no further questions. We thank everyone for their attendance today. We will be sending out this recording and the slides tomorrow morning. And if there are other folks in your organization that would like to interact with us live, we'll be back in February to do another session. But we appreciate you spending your afternoon with us, and we appreciate all of the work you do for our community. Jamila, I just saw you enter. Our presentation has concluded, but we will be sending out the slide deck and the recording. But if you have any specific questions that you would like for us to answer, Jamila, I'm gonna find you and put you off of mute so you can speak with us. She may have, let's see, she may have left. Okay, Jamila, I see you. Okay, Jamila, I've given you the opportunity to unmute if there are any specific questions you want to ask us since our presentation just concluded.
No, I was in the presentation and then happened to get kicked out and had to get back in. So no, you're good.
No worries. Well, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Alejandro, I see where you have a question. Let me find your profile and allow you to unmute. Ooh, it says I'm reacting at you. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just technologically challenged. Okay, Alejandro, you should be able to unmute yourself whenever you'd like to speak.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation as well. So, my name's Alejandro, and and we have a nonprofit where we have been serving like surrounding counties, and have been doing different things throughout the years in Guilford, but very minor activities. But this last year, we did increase our activity in Guilford County. So my question is, just regarding group activities such as um, music classes, um, in Gibsonville. Gibsonville is uh, considered Guilford County, but at the same time, there are some areas where it is Alamance County. So just wanted to know how that goes about in group classes, or how that goes about where you may have um, different spots in Greensboro or Gibsonville, where we're doing different things, but we do have an office in Alamance County. So just wanted to know a little bit more about, like, per se, youth activities for group classes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say only those classes that are serving Guilford County residents would be eligible for funding. So for instance, if you held a class in Gibsonville and you had, say, 30 students, and maybe you took down their like zip code, right? And you said, okay, out of these 30 students, 50% of them are Guilford County residents, then 50%, you could use county funds to fund 50% of that class. Is kind of how I would recommend that funding structure work. Or, your alternate option could be, is you could say, we are going to have two classes when we usually have one. We'll have one with only Guilford County residents, and we'll report all of that as eligible expense. And then we'll have one just for Alamance County residents. So it's up to you kind of how you administer it, as long as the funds are only going to Guilford County residents.
Okay, and that's mainly what I would like to do, like the second option regarding
Like two separate classes.
expanding more, yeah, to Gibsonville, and expanding, because we already do in Alamance County. So just expanding more into Witset, into yeah, Gibsonville. All right,
Great.
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, I think you should have a few folks last. So any last questions from those remaining? If not, we're gonna just go ahead and close out the session. So the recording will start to generate. Okay, thanks everyone again for your time. We'll be in touch.